All right. Good morning, fellow scientists. Welcome back to Big Discussions 76, Science and Technology. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar, for those of you who don't know me, though I suspect everybody who is watching does know me. But you never know when they're going to be, some new eyeballs here. So I really want to thank everyone who keeps coming back to consume this content and to learn something, and to everyone who comes in and hangs out in the chat and contributes thoughts, and those of you who donate to the channel. I really, really appreciate you. This channel, I'm realizing, at least lately, it's becoming a lot of science, current events. So what's happening in the modern world with technology and with social issues, with and then how does science impact, how does politics impact science, has what are the economic ramifications of some of these things. So it's a mixed bag over here now, because science and technology, they impact pretty much everything in our world, as human and as humans and as non-humans. Let me make an announcement over on the original channel, and then I will get this going. We're not going for 2 hours today. I promise. Let's see. So let me just make sure. Let me see. Can't record. Okay, there it is. Do my community tab share. And as per usual, please shout yourselves out. Let me know who's there. Let me know who's watching. All right. So today, the stream is entitled "Are Men and Women Different?" I might change this when this is over to say "Are the genders different?" because I'm really going for, well, on one level you're going for men and women, but also I think a critical issue now in our country and in Western civilizations in particular. I think we're the ones spinning out of control here. Are boys and girls different? So and also, are we pushing more towards androgyny? So I think, but before we get into all that, we're going to have another segment on a little bit of Black history and a Black history, a Black inventor. But after that, we're going to get into, I think I'll start with what androgyny is, and why that term matters, and then we're going to talk about, are the genders different? I mean, it's kind of a silly question at this point. I mean, we know that they are, but there are powers above us that are trying to convince us otherwise, that and to convince us that they are the same and there are no differences. So we're going to look at one of Passport OG's works of art, and then we're going to look at a few clips from the Diary of a CEO live stream with the three feminists. And then there are two passages that I'm going to read from Jonathan Haidt's The Ancient Generation, because he makes the argument in this book that the new technologies that we have, that they impact boys and girls differently. And especially for the girls, I think we're seeing some of these behaviors in grown women. So let me play the intro, and then I'll bring up my brother Amal, and we'll learn about another notable Black inventor, and then we'll proceed with the show. So I will see you on the other side on the intro, and we'll get going. Please like please like this on the way in. Subscribe and share.
So Anwar, I see you have the periodic tables on your chest.
Mm-hmm.
So what's that all about? Why are you walking around with a chemistry chart on your chest?
Well, Cheryl, so this channel is a STEM channel. So when I was conceiving of it and figuring out how to grow it, I figured I should have some t-shirts to go with it. So
okay.
The periodic table is critical to
Inappropriate.
most of the
Okay.
scientific fields. Welcome to Big Discussions 76, Science and Technology. Science and technology are all around us all of the time, and there are always science and technology stories to tell. That audio of that was a discussion with me and a woman named Cheryl Pons, who is the owner of the Ditech Corporation. So her business, they install charging stations for electric vehicles, and I wonder how that sector is doing now that the Trump administration has removed the electric vehicle mandate, because that whole sector, I know there was a dust up between Elon Musk and President Trump when they removed that mandate, and a lot of his business relied on that mandate. And so I'm wondering how Cheryl is doing. I'll ask her when I see her, but I also wonder, we ask, I don't want to say some provocative questions over here, but we visit some things that CNN and MSNBC and even some of the political class, we visit some topics and ask some questions over here that they may not like and they may not be privy to. So I wonder, Cheryl did come for an interview here, but if she's ever looked at some of the other stuff I talk about here, it's all science based. It's all science based, but um, there are certain things that, well, I'll just say that I think we as a citizens in this country, we're being herded in certain directions, and they're asking other questions is not necessarily a good thing. All right, let's learn about another uh, notable Black inventor. This is one I've heard of before. I'm going to welcome back my brother Amal Dunbar. Passport OG, salute to the GOAT. I'm going to feature one of your works of art to start us off in the next segment. My brother's back there laughing. So salute to the GOAT. And domo. I think that's Japanese for hello. Um, so let me welcome back up my brother Amal Dunbar. He's a design and build guy. Very good, always been very good with his hands. He's a lot of the artwork you see in my stuff has come from him, and he has an interest in AI now and notable Black inventors. What's going on, bro? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Thanks for having me.
No problem. So hold on a second. Say something again.
Uh, Good morning, bro. Mic check, mic check. 1 2 1 2. Mic check. 1 2 1 2.
Okay. I noticed that backstage here I could play with your mic a little bit. I still don't know all the functionality of StreamYard, so I turned you up a little bit.
Okay.
So we're gonna go to Instagram, and I will let you drive. Oh, Passport OG says we can hear him. So Passport OG says it must be, yeah.
Thank you, Passport OG.
So I'm gonna hold on,
Appreciate
give me a
it.
second. Let me maximize that for us and for the crowd. So let's do this. And then, okay, on YouTube, there's the thing where you can expand the screen, but I don't see that here for Instagram. So all right, go ahead, bro. I'm gonna mute up.
Okay. Well, good morning, and thank you for having me. It is great to be here. This morning, we are going to discuss the inventor, Elijah McCoy. He was born in May of 1844. He was a mechanical engineer. He has over 50 plus patents, which is significant. Um, he is most recognized for his invention of the self lubricating engine. So I can imagine prior to his invention that that steam engine trains had to be lubed by staff. Nowadays when we think about the engines in our cars or the engines that are in trains, we just assume that they are lubricated by oil, and you change the oil every 3 to 4 months, depending upon the vehicle or depending upon the train. So this was significant in that the engine of a train at this time, during the late 1800s or during the mid to late 1800s, that trains could actually lubricate themselves, or that the engine can lubricate itself without there being dedicated staff to actually doing this. And that invention quantum leaped the train and rail industry. If you think about how much products and goods, our trains move around the country, it's significant. We see trains, and they're just moving products back and forth, and we think that that's no big deal, because depending upon where you live, you probably see this every day. I see rail yards and trains every day when I go back and forth to work, and I don't think anything about how well the engine runs per se. But so yeah, if you can scroll through the artwork, Anwar, thank you. The AI artwork was generated by Leonardo AI, Google's Whisk, and Google's Image Effects. I'd actually created several images, but on some, the AI struggled creating accurate text. Bro, can you keep going? Thank you. Yeah. So all the images where the AI struggled to create decent looking text, those are the images that I did not use, or the images that I did not post. But for the most part, the AI did very well. The artwork came out great, and in some of the images, Elijah, looks like a model. He looks like he could play in the NFL, and so that's what I was going for. I was going for images that make these inventors look iconic, heroic, and legendary. You can keep going, bro. Back, and then yes, that arrow. Okay. Next one. Next one. Next one. Yeah. So that's it for today, folks. So when it comes to the self-lubricating engines that are in your cars, vans, and SUVs, when you see trains moving around your city, just know that the self-lubricating engine was developed by Elijah McCoy, and his patent was granted in 1872. So that's a long time ago, and the economic impact of trains being able to move products and also people has been significant for this country and around the world.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, a fun fact about me is that I love trains. I've always loved trains, and I actually, should I show this now? You know what? I'll show this now.
Okay.
I actually have a couple of pet projects here on YouTube that I play around with. I haven't told everybody about them, but I yes, I can share this now. Just really quickly. Let's see, real and Yeah, guys, there is a Railfan 76 channel. I wanted to grow in that sector first, but of my many geeky endeavors, I've always loved trains, and so the significance of I think what my brother said. One of the things is, hold on a second. StreamYard does this thing where, okay, if anyone wants to sub over there, this is just about trains. This isn't anything uh, uh, you know, socially, uh, any of the hardcore social issues that the Black Manosphere talks about, or that the political class talks about, or anything. This doesn't involve that. It's just the love for trains. If anyone wants to sub over there, the link is there. But anything, an engine, anything with moving parts, you guys are all smart guys there in the chat. There are a lot of moving parts in an engine, and if you don't keep those lubricated, that engine's gonna break down and it's gonna crash. That's a car, that's a train, that's an airline engine, any combustion engine with lots of moving parts. It's gonna need to stay lubricated. So to create something that will self lubricate and take out some of the human error, that's huge. And I think that yeah, these things, we need to hear more about these things beyond Black History Month, because that's just 1 month and it's the shortest month out of the year. And I think for, especially for younger Black kids, there are a lot of images of the wrong things that they're bombarded with. So yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was looking at this. Bro, do you want to say anything else?
Well, I would just add that the original automobiles were essentially smaller trains that can ride up and down roads. So just the advent of the self-lubricating engine was a part of the beginning of making a train engine or a car engine smaller, right? If you look at and I'm sorry, I don't have these visuals here, but the original automobiles really looked like it looked like a train locomotive, but with some seats on the back. If you can imagine that. So just the advent of the self-lubricating engine was part of the start of how small the automotive or train engine can be. The technology began to get smaller. You no longer need something that big to move people or to move products. So if you think about how small a motorcycle engine is, or how small an engine is on a lawnmower, these all do require oil, but they are self lubricated. And at one point, they were all probably larger than how we see them today. So uh, the next time you see a car engine or a train engine, just remember that the self-lubricating technology came from Elijah McCoy, and his patent was granted in 1872. So very significant.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, bro. We're bros, so we'll talk some more offline.
Absolutely.
But all right, but yeah, I'll talk to you shortly.
Thank you, bro. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
Appreciate you. Love your
All
brother.
right, appreciate you too.
Peace.
All right. Everyone, so we'll get on with the the main event here. Okay, shout out to Dr. Thunder. So today we're going to look at two videos. Okay, one is going to be one of the very artistic productions of Passport OG. Okay, he makes those every day. I mean, every day. And as I was thinking, it's funny. I was thinking when I was doing my graduate studies at the University of Michigan, Passport OG lives in Japan, and part of being a scientist is presenting your research orally at meetings in front of people, in front of other scientists and other general audiences. And it's an art. Presenting is an art, and I didn't have it down pat right away. So one of my committee members said that the difference between the way Anwar is presenting right now and the way you would want to give a presentation is, he said, in a prison where you take your tray by and they just slap down the potatoes and the vegetables and the meatloaf. That's kind of how Anwar presents right now versus in Japan, where they take the food and they very carefully put it down, and they make these very eloquent designs of the food before you eat it. That's kind of where Anwar needs to get, and that's how he presents now. So the way Passport OG makes his videos, it's like these very, very beautiful designs of food and animal shapes, and very, very well crafted, very, very crisp, very, very concise, very, very creative. And yeah, so salute to Passport OG. All right, so he's probably laughing back there on his island. Okay, so gender. Guys, one of the issues we've talked about the birth rate crisis, and there's a gender war, and you see Scott Galloway and Richard Reeves and people talking about how Andrew Tate is toxic, and you see ladies online saying they won't settle and they won't go 50-50, and you got Gen X parents, not Gen X, baby boomer parents wondering why they don't have any grandchildren. And I think in the Western societies, they've just messed gender up. Okay. And probably one of the biggest sins, one of the biggest wrenches they've thrown in a thing is what are the genders? Are there differences between the genders? Are boys and girls different? Are men and women different? Can women do all the same things that men can do? When should a woman attempt to have children? Boys are being left behind, girls are leaving boys and men in the dust. Shout out to Richard Reeves. We've made tremendous progress in the fact that women can now have checking accounts and get home mortgages. That's tremendous success and advancement, and we should never go back to where we were. But I think one of the fundamental places where this thing is being screwed up is, are the genders different? Are boys and girls different? Are men and women different? What is a boy? What's a girl? What's a man? What's a woman? Can you even say what they are today? And an example of this is my favorite new drop involving Jess Hilarious and that woman. Who that woman? So I have a further clue of who that woman is. She's from Revolt, okay, which I think was Diddy's operation, but she's from Revolt. The woman who's about to tell us that anyone with a uterus can have a baby, and a woman is a social construct.
Oh, okay.
Only women can have babies. I just want to let you know that.
Interesting. There are other people who can have babies.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if they have a uterus, they can have babies, but they just might
Right.
not identify as woman. Those
Okay.
are two different things. Like you can be biologically female, but you can't be biologically woman. Woman is a gender construct, a
Okay.
social construct. But if you got a
Okay.
uterus, yeah, you can have a baby.
Yes, that's the point. If you have a uterus, you can have a baby.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we
Period.
agree on that.
So for now, we'll call her the Revolt Lady. Okay, if any of you guys know her real name, you could drop it there in the chat. But for now, we'll refer to her as the Revolt Lady, and actually, that's an appropriate name for her. So gender. So we've known. I mean, Passport OG, you're a Gen Xer, so you grew up hearing girls mature faster than boys. Girls advance faster than boys. They mature faster than boys. It takes boys time to catch up. And then at some point, we know that boys eventually become bigger and stronger. Well, they used to. Boys go on to become the majority of your law enforcement, your standing army. Boys should exhibit chivalry. We had probably the last pieces of differentiators, gender differentiators between the two, and then at some point they started trying to homogenize everything. So they started trying to homogenize things, which I think is causing a lot of confusion today. And then at some point we started seeing marriages seeing higher divorce rates and lower marital rates, and then now many members of both genders just can't stand each other at all. And as we'll see at the beginning of Passport OG's video, now men suck. Men should be in prison. Men should have to fight for their freedom. Men are just bad people. Father's Day now is marked by lots of mothers saying that they do both jobs. That became a badge of honor. I'm both the mother and the father. Is that the way it's supposed to be? That's a very, very touchy subject. But we know scientifically, and someone who draws a lot of ire is Judge Joe Brown. Okay, and he made he's not always very diplomatic, but he tells it like it is. And he made a comment about the Memphis mayor. Memphis is in general known as a war zone now. It's a mostly black city. But he made the argument in so many words that he's a staunch advocate of masculinity. Okay. And I think he referred to, or others have referred to, the elephant experiment in Africa. Okay, so they know it is in Africa. And this is the Cliff Notes version. In Africa, the young male elephants, with no male elephants there, the young male elephants were running wild and killing each other and killing other creatures and making the female elephants fear for their lives. And they realized that if they put larger male bull elephants there in those packs, that order would be restored. Okay, so there was something about those larger, stronger male elephants that restored order and kept order. Okay, so we're humans are animals. We have an opposable thumb. We have a prefrontal cortex, but at the end of the day, we're mammals. So for some reason, the thought process is we can just defy all those natural laws. We can abolish the natural order. Shout out to Dr. Thunder, and everything will be fine. Okay, but what we're seeing is all chaos is breaking out. Okay, so what is androgyny? Let's start with that. Then we'll show We'll start with the Passport OG video. Androgyny. Let's look that up. And we'll do androgynous. Androgynous, androgyny. Androgynous. Let me blow this up for you guys. Androgynous, derived from the Greek words andro and gyne. So andro, parentheses, male, gyne, parentheses, female, refers to the expression of both masculine and feminine characteristics. It can describe physical appearance, gender identity, or even biological traits, while often associated with gender expression. Androgyny is distinct for non-binary identities, though some non-binary individuals may express themselves androgynously. Guys, who's the let's have some fun here. Who is the artist you think about most when you think about androgyny? Well, actually, there are several, but there's one in particular. I'm thinking about. Can you name an artist who kind of is the a symbol of androgyny? Anyone? Boy George. Okay, okay. That's a good guess. I was thinking about someone else. Apoteki. I was thinking about someone else. Any other takers? Oh yeah, this is the one I was thinking about. Passport OG, Mr. Prince, and I think Prince is in my mind will go down as a musical genius. He could play multiple instruments. He wrote music for himself and others. He could dance. He could sing. He could play instruments. But Prince's image in his band, The Revolution, their image was very androgynous. So the guys, more so the guys, wore tight clothing. Prince wore those high heels. And even though we know Prince was hetero, he was cis. How do you say it? Cis. He was a cisgendered male. Is that what they say today? He was a cisgendered male, but his image was also, there were also elements of the feminine, particularly in his image. And even the way he sang, even the way he moved, even the way he comported himself. Shout out to Black Uru. Prince, he was androgynous, but that was part of his act, even though he was a Jehovah's Witness, and those people are very, those practitioners, the practitioners of that religion, they're very, very conservative. So deep down, he was conservative, even though his image was androgynous and very, very suggestive. Little Richard, okay. Alonzo Hall says he passed away and left the $160 million plus estate issue. Yep, that's right. And yeah, little Richard. So that's androgyny, and we're seeing a lot of androgyny today, and it's arguably being promoted, as was the case with the Revolt lady. All right, but another question is, another hot topic, and as this whole thing is spiraling, what's the true nature of boys? Are boys different than girls? Is our society cracking down on the natural tendencies of boys and what boys are supposed to be? Are boys supposed to engage in rough and tumble play? Are boys supposed to sit down quietly at a desk like girls? Are boys supposed to be more tactile? Do they need to move? Do they need more engagement? Okay, are they inherently different than girls? Are we forcing boys today and then subsequently men to be something that they're not and something that they were never meant to be? Okay, are we doing that today? And what are the consequences of doing something like this? I would argue that, yeah, we're definitely hurting the generations as we go on, and we're steadily screwing this Western civilization up by doing this, by doing things like this. Before we jump into Passport OG's video, I have a surprise for everybody. Passport OG, this is an appropriate preamble to one of your videos, and I'm quite certain you remember this. This channel's not monetized right now, so I don't know what levy can be put against this channel right now, but I think this is an appropriate opening for Passport OG's video. I saw this on X. Let me minimize myself. This was a lot of our childhoods. Fair use, fair use. This is only, it's 1 minute and 3 seconds. Fair use. I'm taking a gamble here, but hold on. I mean, fair use, fair use. If YouTube lets me get away with that, I might do that every time I play a Passport OG video. Everybody, so for us Gen Xers, that was the HBO introduction, I think, to world premieres. So you millennial people, you Gen Z people, you have no knowledge of what that was. But in the 80s, people had HBO, Showtime, Cinemax, HBO, Showtime, Cinemax. I felt like there was a fourth. There was a fourth one. Anyway, that introduction was a really big deal. I used to put my Superman up to the like screen when the HBO would come out of nowhere and you'd be in like an outer space. Anyway, see, Passport OG, he knows what that is. He knows what that is. All right. And some of my viewers didn't like that because they went away. All right. Passport OG's video from yesterday. Do boys earn their freedom from birth? I feel like there was another movie channel. Fair use, fair use. Fair use, fair use. Do boys need to earn their freedom from birth?
I know this might seem a little harsh, but Men should have to start in jail and then earn their way to freedom.
Said that men should be born in prison and work their way out. Yeah.
The saying that men should be put in jail when they're born and earn the right to get free, I completely agree with that.
My hot take is that men should start life in jail and earn their way out.
All men should start their life in prison and prove their ways out. No, but you know what they do need? Like a year of court-mandated therapy and like 2 intro to feminism courses.
There's Passport OG signature intro. So men should have to earn their freedom. And then that last lady said they should have to get therapy and then take a feminism course. Okay. I could just stop that there in terms of how this thing is coming off the rails, but let's keep going. Can you guys still hear me? I want to make sure that I didn't get, yeah, it looks like it's still transmitting. So you don't know if YouTube said, oh, you played that HBO intro. So yeah, we're taking this down. So we're still here. Let's keep going. Fair use.
北九州市の小学校で水泳の授業を受けていた児童25人が失神やしびれなどの症状を訴えています。
This is an unfolding national story in Japan of 25 children in an elementary school that felt bad after a swimming lesson in the school. This is, of course, the kind of story that would make everyone in Japan take notice, and there are going to be extra questions about swimming lessons at school and all of those things. But this is a kind of benchmark.
Over 8,000 men have permanently broken free from the P word by watching one single video training that you can actually watch by clicking the link.
Kind of story for Japan, in that in the summer it gets hot, and maybe the problem with the water was the bacteria count got too high or something like that, and some kids got sick from it. But they're taking elementary school swimming lessons at every school in Japan right now. That's just part of the curriculum, and not just elementary school, but junior high school as well. So for all of the kids, one of the things that they look forward to is the fact that they get to swim at school, maybe 3 or 4 times a week. When you go to PE is swimming. A great way to release a lot of the pent-up energy that young kids are going to have in elementary school. My time in Japan has let me witness a curriculum for kids in elementary school, specifically boys, where 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old boys are looking forward to going to school because they know that they're going to have a swimming lesson in it. And not only do they have swimming lessons in the summer, as well as a variety of different sports that they play throughout the year, but they have a 15-minute recess break between second and third period to go outside and play. And then they have an extended 15, 20, maybe even 30 minutes of time to play after lunch. It is a curriculum that's centered around letting kids get their pent-up energy out several times during the day before they're told to sit down and concentrate. That said, it seems to be in a stark contrast to what we're hearing from young ladies who are teachers, who are essentially identifying boys as the problem in the classroom.
I was listening to this yesterday, or I was driving and listening to this Passport OG yesterday. So I didn't zero in on that title there. That says so much of education there in the corner. So much of education is now girl coded, quote unquote. Boys lose interest when they see too many girls involved in something. And then that says, here is why boys are falling behind in the classroom. Okay. I don't know, Passport OG, you can let me know, or can you let me know where that came from? I don't think that's related to the Japanese piece you just shared. And I think the significance of the Japanese piece was that it was unusual that nobody was in the pool, so they're cranking down on the playtime, which is unusual. But this is interesting that boys, so much of education is now girl coded. Boys lose interest when they see too many girls involved in something. Yeah, so if that's true, I guess boys naturally want or need to have something of their own. And there's a phenomenon where when boys and men have something of their own, the girls and the women feel like they need to be involved in that too. But there's something that's suggesting to me that boys are naturally saying, you know what, we want something separate for ourselves. Fair use, fair use.
And if you're a boy in the classroom and you can sense that you're a problem in it, and the teacher thinks that your behavior is fundamentally flawed, like we heard at the beginning of this video, you're going to get teachers sounding like this.
Please go back and look at this discussion. Therese, I hope I'm saying your name correct. This is so true. In her discussion, what she's talking about is this argument that boys are falling behind, and now the school education system is being blamed, women teachers are being blamed, and the real issue is that we're not playing with boys anymore. And let me just say, as an educator, is that we are holding them accountable. We're not coddling them. We're not allowing them to act a fool in class and say, oh, boys are just boys.
It's very interesting listening to this educator speak very freely on the internet about how basically the boys are the problem in the classroom. It speaks to an environment to where it's understood that the boys are the problem. And the problem with the boys is that they're fundamentally flawed and they need to be taught how to act correctly, as opposed to seeing their behavior as something that is natural. The first question I would ask her is, what do you mean by holding a 8-year-old boy that's a ball of energy accountable? If accountable is you're supposed to sit down and not be a ball of energy, you're essentially telling him that he's flawed, instead of saying, this is not the time for that. The time for your energy is in swim class, or when we have the recess in a few minutes. Instead of saying that there's something wrong with you and you need to correct the essence of what you are, which is something that is not just echoed on the internet, as you heard at the beginning of this video, but what if that idea is creeping into the schools? Because listening to this video, it kind of sounds like it's already there.
And
so, yeah, I want to echo that. What is fundamentally flawed about being a boy? Okay, being physical, needing to engage in quote unquote rough and tumble play. That's a term you'll hear. Dr. Warren Farrell wrote The Boy Crisis, I believe. Richard Reeves wrote Of Boys and Men, but you hear that with boys. Boys engage in rough and tumble play, and fathers engage in rough and tumble play with their children, their boys in particular. And boys learn about their physicality and how to manage it through that play with their fathers. And without that, you know, you get a slew of many undesirable consequences. But rough and tumble play, what's wrong with that? There is nothing wrong with that. Okay. Now I could see the need to maintain order in a classroom, but if you're demonizing boys for being boys, then eventually the end result of that is your society, your civilization is going to spin out of control. Fair use, fair use.
And so I can give you an example. Recently, I had a class of 20 boys and only 3 girls in the class. I don't know how that happened, but it was a complete, oh my gosh, it was so hard because the boys were constantly wanting me to favor them, wanting me to coddle them, their parents wanting me to coddle them.
The second question I would ask this teacher is, what's wrong with coddling the boys? If the boys need some attention or they want some favor from the teacher, what's the problem with that at all? I don't see any problem there. But instead, it seems as if she's kind of a drill sergeant. You are supposed to do what I tell you. You behave in this fashion. And that fashion seems to be act the way that the girls act, because the girls' behavior is perfect by default. And the fact that you're not behaving the way that they do means that there's something fundamentally wrong with you.
I was accused of, oh, well, you only care about what's going on with the girls. But I would see how the boys would be treating the girls, and I was correcting them. I would notice that every time that the girls would assert themselves, they would raise their hands and speak up. The boys would start laughing. They would, if a girl made a mistake was one little girl. She couldn't even talk because every time she started talking, the boys would start giggling. Now, she was the pretty little girl in class, the Beyonce of the classroom. Every time she'd open up her mouth to talk, they'd start giggling. Then they start laughing about her name. So the things and the bullying that boys used to be allowed to do, as teachers and as women, we have evolved and we've learned that we don't allow it to happen. We don't tell the girls to sit down and shut up and be quiet and then let the boys giggle and run around. And I kept holding them accountable.
Listening to
So again, I was driving and multitasking when I watched this yesterday. Guys, what happens, especially pre-middle school and even in middle school, what is that a symptom of? If the boys, she noted this was a particularly pretty girl, what do kids do? What do both sexes do at that age when they like somebody? I won't stay here long, guys, but I just thought about that when I heard her say that. What do both boys and girls do at that age when they like each other? When she's, oh yeah, she's a pretty girl. What do they do? What did we do? Thank you, UFO Kamikaze. That's a good summary of it. You tease each other, you laugh at each other. In some instances, that can be expressed as hitting each other, right? Pulling on pigtails, or even girls will slap a guy upside his head or punch a guy when they like them. So that wasn't necessarily bullying, and I think the teacher probably should know the difference between, as a teacher herself, she should know the nuance in that. Okay, so that wasn't necessarily bullying. Now, I think if the girl is trying to answer, that's a teachable moment for the boys. Let her do her thing. We're here to learn, but I wouldn't call that bullying necessarily. Fair use.
To this educator used the word accountable in reference to energy-filled, rambunctious 8-year-old boys.
If you don't know where to start in Top Heroes World, the Springland is a great place to start. There are low-level enemies and villages with free.
Is fascinating to me because I remember when I was a 7, 8, 10-year-old boy, I was thinking about which team was I going to be on playing baseball or basketball at recess, or who I was going to sit next to in the cafeteria and talk about the last episode of Transformers of Voltron. And in all of that, I'm trying to figure out who I am and whether I like school or not, or where's my place in the school. And if you're constantly being pointed out as not being accountable as an 8-year-old boy, you could very quickly come to not like going to school.
I didn't let them tear up the classroom and expect the girls to clean it up. Now, that was what happened at the beginning of the school year. I noticed that the one child in particular, which just his area would be filthy. And I would say that until we cannot leave this classroom and go to recess until the room is clean. And I would be, doing my things, getting myself prepared to take them outside. And I looked up and I realized that all 3 of the little girls would be over there cleaning and wiping his desk off. And he'd be standing around giggling and laughing, sometimes giggling and laughing at them.
Now, you know what? I didn't see a problem with this particular part. I mean, because everybody needs to learn accountability and responsibility, and people need to learn how to follow rules. So I don't see a particular problem with her trying to teach this particular lesson.
So, of course, I put a stop to that. Then I was favoring them. Okay. Then whenever the boys would lie, I would call them on it and not just let it go. I didn't let them be cute and giggle. Then I was being too hard on the boys. So I do believe that as women and as women teachers, most of us are teachers, as you said, 75 to 78% of all teachers are women. And it's that women have evolved. And like I said, we're not playing with these little boys anymore. We're not letting them abuse the little girls anymore. We're not letting them giggle and take over the class. We're not letting them talk over us.
It's very interesting listening to the word choice of this educator, because she's using the ABUSE word in speaking about how young boys and young girls are relating to each other. Now, I'm not a child psychologist, but I'm pretty sure that much of the interplay behavior between young girls and young boys is just discovery. How do I let a young girl know that I like her, or which girls like me, or where do I stand with the girls? And
so, well, Passport OG just nailed it right there. That's what I was thinking earlier. He eventually said it here in his own analysis. So salute to the GOAT.
And some of it is pulling ponytails, and some of that is getting smacked on the shoulder. Now, this is part of what comes when you mix boys and girls in the same elementary school. But to use the word of a word like she's using is a bit striking, because I can almost assure you that none of those boys are thinking of that. The idea of that A word being present in that school, that's in her head, not in between those boys and girls, just learning how to be young kids and playing with each other.
We're not letting them abuse the little girls anymore. We're not letting them giggle and take over the class.
So another thing I'm thinking about here, as Passport OG just said that, if you start should these boys be punching girls and slamming them up against lockers and body slamming them? Certainly that's abuse. Okay, that's yeah, I'm not advocating that. But once you start once you introduce that word, yeah, you have to, yeah, there's nuance there. Are they just being kids? Are they just figuring out how the genders relate to each other, how boys and girls relate to one another? Or are these boys coming in here punching the girls in the face and literally abusing them? That's a strong word to use, and it's also setting precedent going forward, because one of the things young women and going into womanhood, what they're looking for, what they're going to be looking for, even despite what they say, they're going to be looking for strength qualities in men, and they're going to be Scott Galloway. He's got a lot of detractors here in these YouTube streets. Even he said, well, ladies say they want these tender, attentive men, these modern men, but at the end of the day, they want masculine men. Those are the men that they go for. So this is very dangerous, and it's confusing. It's going to be confusing to them. And going to Richard Reeves, Mr. Boys Are Being Left Behind, this is part of what's happening right here. This is part of the puzzle right here. You're turning boys into something else that they're not meant to be. Very use.
We're not letting them talk over us, because that's what I had. I had some little boys in class. I'd be talking and they would cut me off and start talking. And of course, I put a stop to that. Things like going to the bathroom and making sure they wipe the seat off. Their bathroom, I made sure their bathroom was as clean as the girls' bathroom. And so that meant putting the schedule out for them to clean their bathroom. Why the girls don't have to do it? Go look at the girls' bathroom and look at y'all's, right? And so it's the fact that we're holding boys accountable. We as women educators have evolved, and we are holding boys to the same standard. We're not just passing them through. We're not working the girls and raising the girls and teaching the girls and educating the girls and letting the boys just kiki their way through school.
When you listen to the number of times that this educator uses words like accountability and that ABUSE word, it makes you wonder, is she using that language in class? And if she is using that language in class, and 99.9% of the time that language is directed at the boys, one of the logical conclusions that people in the class are going to come up with is that not only is the boys' behavior fundamentally bad, but boys are fundamentally bad people. And how do we feel about people that are fundamentally bad? Well, it might possibly contribute to stories like this one.
So I don't have a problem with teaching the boys accountability. I mean, I had to clean, I had to do dishes and vacuum and clean the house. That was something my mother made us do. So I think, yeah, there's nothing wrong with teaching accountability and consequences. And no, they shouldn't be passed through without doing the work. So I don't have a problem with that. But again, should they be singled out and demonized for just being boys? I don't agree with that. So no, there's nothing wrong with structure. Again, nothing wrong with structure and discipline. But again, keep in mind that later on in life, they're going to be expected on a primal level to exhibit strength qualities and masculine qualities that we consider masculine. Okay, the girls are going to be, then women, they're going to be looking for that. So this is something society needs to reconcile and consider. All right. Fair use. Oh, this is.
Want a loyal and motivated workforce? Share the success.
Just end him.
This story is particularly sinister. And this, I'm going to read two passages from John Haidt's book at the end of the stream. And I think this gets to how dangerous girls can be if their emotions lead them to a dark place. Fair use.
That was the goal of a group of 10 and 11-year-old girls who surprise police say wanted to kill a boy at school. The motive? He's accused of cheating on one of them, so she wants him. Plot was simple. According to the police report, 4 fifth-grade students at Legacy Traditional School's West Surprise campus planned to lure a classmate to the charter school's outside bathroom and stab him in the stomach. And each girl had a role to play to get away with it. One would bring the knife, another would forge a suicide note to make it seem like he took his own life, and someone would act as a lookout while the other carried out the stab. And to avoid fingerprints on the weapon, they would wear gloves. Documents say the friends came up with the plan during lunch and recess on October 1st. Legacy administrators worked with the school resource officer to investigate when students who overheard the plot came forward.
Guys, this sounds an awful lot like Julius Caesar, doesn't it? We're gonna bring him into this side room, and then all of a sudden we're gonna et tu, Brute. And this is look at this. This is Legacy Traditional School. So this is a nice school. This is not East Side High. Okay, this is Legacy Traditional School. So I think he was all this over childhood romances. I believe that's what it was. So they were gonna shank him and kill him. Okay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't. Unalive. They were going to unalive him. And I think, Passport OG here, your editing skills are stellar for blocking those things out. Fair use. These are tools that YouTubers have to have. Fair use.
The next day, their backpacks were searched and the suspects were individually questioned with their parents present. All 4 children were then arrested for threatening and disorderly conduct misdemeanor charges. The police report says 3 of the students showed remorse, but the 4th would smile and laugh while making excuses for their actions.
Everything that I've gone through has been because of lack of self-esteem and men being in the middle.
Oh, K. Michelle. Men aren't good people. Fair use.
What do you mean? Like, explain that. Like,
I don't think men are good people.
Wait, you think that now? All men?
I don't think they're good people.
As someone who spent more than a decade coaching youth male sports, I can say from my experience that there's nothing more special than the energy that's radiating from a young boy that's pulsating with energy that he doesn't really know what to do with. And as a positive male role model, you can channel that energy into a sport with a group of guys, a group of boys, to do something positive. But when you turn that negative and essentially say that that energy is bad, that it's negative, that there's nothing positive about that energy, and then imagine that your teacher believes that. And not only does your teacher believe it, but their favorite singer says it out in the open.
So, guys, one of the things I thought about when I was listening to Passport OG's analysis of that teacher who said that, you know, we're not going to coddle the boys and they got to clean the bathrooms and vice versa. I was wondering, I was wondering what zip code that school was in, and do those boys have fathers? Okay, are those mostly boys raised by their mothers, or did they have fathers at home instilling order at home? Okay, that's something I wondered. Okay, let's get back to K. Michelle's assertion that all men are bad people. She's saying me and Passport OG are bad people. How dare her? How dare she say that?
That men are bad people. Imagine what that might do to a classroom, to a school, to an education environment where kids are forced to go there every day. Boys are forced to go there every day. And they know the teacher not only doesn't like them because of the essence of who they are, but you're trying to be someone that you're not all the time that you're stuck at school for 8 hours a day. And it seems that everything that's what you are is what's wrong with you. What do you do in that instance? And on the flip side, what kind of environment would make 4 young girls think that because a guy cheated on one of the girls, that he shouldn't even be not just picked on or to get in a fight with? They wanted to take the boy out. What kind of environment creates such a negative idea of masculinity and boyhood, manhood, that young girls could essentially say that he just doesn't deserve to be here anymore in 5th grade? When I hear these kinds of stories, it makes me wonder how much are the programming of boys being a menace to society ingrained in modern day culture. When you hear social media and woman after woman say men are bad people and men should start in jail, and I don't see any positive in men, and the world would be better without men, what do you do to a boy who's forced to spend 12 years in an environment where a young lady might be commenting under one of those TikToks on her phone during her break in the school? That is an unfortunate place for a boy to be stuck for 12 years if he can't have any positive male role models. But it's an unfortunate reality that we have to confront. What saddens me most about these kind of stories is that even though the majority of my teachers were women, they understood that boys were different and they had a level of grace. I can only imagine how difficult school would have been for me if I woke up every morning knowing I didn't want to go. And maybe that's the problem as to why boys are falling behind, because educational places, schools and universities are simply places that boys don't feel comfortable being in and don't want to go to in the morning. And if you replicate that on a mass scale, maybe that's why we have what we have. Not because men are defective, but because men simply don't feel like they belong there. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, comment below. I'll catch you in the next video. Take care.
All right, before we move on, for the GOAT. Bravo on another marvelous production there. Guys, give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Give me a second. All right. Before we move on to a few clips, just a few clips from the Diary of a CEO stream, which you guys have probably all seen. I can't wait to see the master teacher's reaction to that. I don't know if he did that one yet, but from a science perspective, are the genders different? So we know that today we're seeing a lot of, we are in the era of gender transitioning, okay? And much of that is involves hormonal therapy. Okay. So when you talk about gender transitioning, you're talking about endocrinology. I've talked about the endocrine system on this channel quite a bit. Let me just show this really quickly for completeness. When you're talking about the endocrine system, and this has been researched ad nauseum over the last 100 years. This is what pharmacology is. That's my background. So when you're talking about the endocrine system, you smart guys there in the chat and those watching on the playback, you know that our bodies are made up of different organ systems, and they, for the most part, communicate through chemical signaling. When it comes to the endocrine, when it comes to the puberty and adolescence, tissues like the thymus and the pituitary gland create a hormone that drops in the bloodstream, and it goes to for instance, the testes or the ovaries, and those affect those. And boys start generating testosterone. They start generating more testosterone. Boys do generate some estrogen, and girls start generating more estrogen than they do testosterone. And then once she starts her menstrual cycle, there's a whole cascade of processes and hormones that are being upregulated and downregulated during the month. And then once she becomes pregnant, then certain hormones like progesterone become very important. But what drives all that? What tells a boy's body to become a boy, and what tells a girl's body to become a girl? So it's the SRY gene. Boys have the SRY gene, okay, and that drives the production of more testosterone. Girls do not have the SRY gene, okay? So even if you do hormonal therapy, even if you do more hormonal therapy to block the estrogen effects in a girl, and you give her more testosterone, she still does not have the SRY gene in her DNA. So if you cease those hormones, scientifically, in theory, she would go back to being more girl-like and lady-like. But there would be also a slew of psychological damages that may have been done. All right, that's some science there. This is a science channel. So the Diary of a CEO live stream, it was like a Thanksgiving meal. There's so much there you could eat off of, and I thought it would be appropriate to rehash this part of that discussion. And thank you once again to Stephen Bartlett, the CEO, for doing this. This stream only, this podcast, how many views does this have? Okay, it hit 1 million views. I was thinking a couple of days ago, this doesn't have 1 million views, but it hit 1 million. All right, so let me skip to 1 hour and 38 minutes. If you guys want to watch the whole thing, this link is below in the description box. It's good practice to give attribution to the content creator if you're going to cite their work in your work. The same is true for Passport OG's video. Hold on. And you guys keep commenting there. If anyone wants to make a donation to the channel, My information is there in the ticker. All right, fair use, fair use. Being like men, that's in my notes. So I think in this particular piece, they're talking about the different attributes of men and women. That's Louise Perry. The woman right there with the short hair. Give me a second. The woman with the short hair, that's Erica Komisar. And the woman in the red, the second wave feminist, that is Deborah Francis White. All right, fair use, fair use.
Bobs. And that is partly because we're not properly educating women about what the experience is like, but it's also because unfortunately there has been this strain of feminism, it's not all feminism at all, which has basically aspired as much as possible to make women like men. Yeah. And that includes
there's been a push to make women like men. Okay, so thank you, Louise, for acknowledging that they are different. And there's been an effort to make the women more like men. We're the only species on the planet doing this. Fair use, fair use.
Includes women being like men professionally, women having sex like men. That's the expression they use in Sex and the City, having sex like a man, right? Basically enjoying hookups without any real emotional connection. And I think that's a real trap for feminism, is to assume that women should want to be as much like men as possible.
Even women's bodies, even if you look at teenage girls' bodies, they all aspire to be like adolescent boys. You know, they don't want breasts, they don't want hips, they want to be, right? So it's almost as if we elevated, in a funny way, feminists were trying to reject patriarchy, but they ended up idolizing it and wanting to be it, and then rejecting everything feminine. And that's a problem. And it's certainly a problem for motherhood.
And I think what maternal feminism says is, actually, maybe women are all right, and maybe actually this feminine stuff is good, and maybe motherhood is actually just as valuable as your professional life. And we should aspire to feminist ideas, policy, education, whatever, which prizes that.
So maybe being feminine is all right. Maybe being a girl, maybe being ladylike, maybe that's okay.
How much do you see women elevated who are mothers? I mean, do you go to a cocktail party and you ask a woman what she does, and she says, I'm a stay-at-home mom and I'm raising my children. The back will turn on her, whether it's a woman or a man. And so that means that we've denigrated and not just deprioritized. We've deprioritized, we've denigrated it, we've dismissed it, we've turned it into something less than. And so remember that what helped women to feel valuable in society was the admiration for them. Feminism has to get to a place where it says, you have choice. We admire your choice to stay home with your children, and admire our choice not to have children. But the idea that the second wave of feminism, it was about, it's all drudgery and it's disgusting and boring, and it made it into this. And now you have these websites, which are frightening to me, the scary mommy websites, where you have women saying, I hate breastfeeding and I hate pregnancy and I hate my children. And it's so disturbing to me, because what have we done to those women? What have we done to society that we have those websites? It's okay to feel frustrated, to feel bored, to have many feelings about mothering, but the hostility towards mothering, the hostility towards children, the hostility towards raising children, if we don't admire mothers again, there will be no mothers in the future.
Shout out to Ray Alexander, denigrating. They denigrated mothers who wanted to be mothers. All right. I'll let this part go for a few more minutes, then we'll jump ahead, and then I will wrap the stream up.
Erica, I feel totally the opposite. That's so interesting, because I'm not a mother. I had a Guilty Feminist podcast episode where Susan Kalman, who's a comedian, came on, and we said, what do you want to talk about? And she said, I want to talk about the fact that I've never wanted to be a mother. I said, I've tried to have children, couldn't, but I have lots of nurturing relationships, love children. I have never had more fury in my inbox. Like, we were monsters because we weren't mothers. So what you're saying is true, that sometimes someone will be, oh, you're a stay-at-home mom, and I despise it. Being a stay-at-home parent is a job of work, and I want women to be celebrated for staying home with their children. I want men to be celebrated. Men tend to be celebrated more if they do that work. I want women to be celebrated. I want all parents of any gender to be celebrated for that.
We agree on that.
Okay, I'm going to jump ahead to an hour 44 minutes. Sneeze there. You guys keep letting me know what you think there in the chat. Fair use, fair use.
Contemporary world, and this applies just as much to men as to women. We talked about the manosphere earlier, is that gender roles contain both privileges and responsibilities, both of them. So men do other pro-social things, right? And I think that generally one of the problems that we have in contemporary culture, having rejected so much of traditional gender ideas, is that gender roles traditionally contain both privileges and responsibilities. So for men, the privileges are kind of obvious, like feminists have drawn a lot of attention to these, but men also have counterpart responsibilities, which includes things like dying for their country or for their family, which includes doing backbreaking labor. There are all sorts of hard things that men are expected to do in exchange. I think this is the unwritten agreement, in exchange for those responsibilities, those privileges rather. Women have that too. So women have some privileges. You get to the women and children first principle when it comes to saving lives. Women are often the beneficiaries of what's called benign sexism. So men being kind of deferential to women, like nice gentlemanly men being deferential to women. There's this cognitive bias called the women are wonderful principle, where when people will actually, if you ask someone do you want to save a woman that you don't know or a man that you don't know from drowning, people will overwhelmingly choose to save the woman. So there are those privileges.
So there are different perceptions and pluses and minuses for either gender. Fair use, fair use.
There are also responsibilities, and they include things like caring work, which is hard, and the danger and difficulty of childbearing, which is really hard. And I think that one of the problems, and maybe this is narcissistic, I don't know, this is a touchy word, but maybe this is narcissistic, is that both sexes want the privileges without the responsibilities. And you see that within the manosphere as well. That's what the manosphere wants. They want all the privileges of masculinity without any of the responsibilities. They don't want.
So that's something I appreciate Luisa's commentary and her willingness to come forward and talk about this from her perspective. I don't necessarily agree with that in the manosphere, quote unquote, men want the privileges without the responsibilities. Okay, you guys let me know what you think there in the chat, but I don't agree with that. That's something I noted on Monday night as well. Fair use.
Want to have to be the breadwinner for their families, or to do difficult work, or to risk their safety doing anything. And I'm afraid sometimes feminism is like this as well, that we expect women to be given, to be deferred to and to be prioritized. But we say, I don't have time to do all this stuff for other people. That's ridiculous. I should be like writing TV shows. I mean, that's not the counterpart, right? Like writing TV shows is great, but it's not like essential work to society. Whereas raising children and protecting your community really is. And we do need people to do that of both sexes.
Problem is we can't put a price on it. And that's the problem, is that we can't put a price on how important it is to raise children. It's unpaid work. And because we focus so much in society on paid work, we can't put a price on how elevated women's work should be, meaning how elevated nurturing children should be in society. My kids always say, again, I'm going to get a lot of hell for this too, but my kids always say, it's not fair that people in finance are earning all that money and doctors and nurses and social workers and teachers earn so little. And they used to say that when they were little. And I had a hard time explaining to them why that was. And all I could say was, the world is not a fair place. But that's not a very good response. And so, I think the idea that
Ladies, watch out. This shrimp trick will make your belly disappear in just 15 days. Yes, everyone is talking about this shrimp trick that's going viral with
have shifted this narrative towards working out in the world and paid labor and accomplishments out in the world and achievements out in the world, as opposed to what's right in front of you.
I don't know what the shrimp trick is. Bimmy, thank you for being here, Bimmy. My first time seeing you. Bimmy says she can't criticize feminism without saying the men are just as bad. I was thinking that same thing too, Bimmy. Shout out to Dr. Tia-San Johnson. When you have these conversations, there's a need to cover oneself and to be fair and equitable, and also to flatten everything. Shout out to Dr. Tia-San Johnson, to flatten everything, to make everything the same. So if you're going to take one side to task, particularly if you're going to take the feminist side to task, you have to take the masculine manosphere side to task as well. So things need to be even here. They need to be equitable. Okay. UFO Kamikaze says, guys keep thinking they can self-improve their way into oppressing these women, which only contributes to their delusional sense of superiority over men. So there's a sphere of thought there that no matter what you do, no matter how much money you make, no matter how much you improve your body, it's not going to make a difference in today's gender climate. Okay, a few more minutes of this, then I'm gonna transition towards the end. Various. I thought this was the part where Erica talks about how differently when a mother and a father are laying in bed and in general, when the baby starts crying, the mother will get up, and then when there's a rustling outside, the man knows to get up, and that's hormonal. That's a part of this talk. If we don't get to it here, it's there. You guys can look it up yourself, but she talks about that in this discussion. Fair use.
The accomplishment, which is maybe the greatest accomplishment of raising emotionally, mentally, physically healthy children that you put out into the world for the next generation. I mean, we have to survive as a species. And so that's all of that paid work is also important. And you should have the choice to do that or nurture or some of both. But if I were going to say my one goal out of this podcast would be to help people understand that we have denigrated maybe one of the most important work you can do, instead of elevating it, instead of admiring women for staying home and dealing with the boring moments and dealing with the hardships and dealing with the sleeplessness and the frustration. It's much easier to go to work. It is much easier to leave your children in daycare or with a nanny, not the women that have to, believe me. But it is much easier if you have a choice to go to work, because being out of the house it's harder work staying home. So why aren't we admiring the women who are staying home and doing that hard work and having those boring moments?
Denigration. Shout out to Ray Alexander. Once again, staying at home is harder work. Okay, let's get a few more words from Deborah, and then I'll shut this off.
I agree that parenting is difficult work. I agree that raising the next generation is extremely valuable. I agree that the people who do it, whoever they are, should be respected and should be paid in the way that we live in a capitalist society. And if we don't put a value on it, or we don't create tax breaks around it, or have child endowment around it, we then say it's not important. So I absolutely agree with all of that. I do not agree that feminism pulled a linchpin out when it said women shouldn't have to be the ones that visit the neighbor and do all the unpaid labor around in the community. I think that should be unpaid labor in the community is important, but that's why they call it community and not women's work. It's a community effort. So I should do it, but I should also get to go to work in the writer's room, and my husband should do it, and he should go and get to do his job. So I think a lot of times today, maybe without meaning to, I've heard from both of you, even though we agree on many things, feminism really did a number on us, or feminism pulled a lynch finger, or it's feminism's fault. Without feminism, none of us would be around this table, because Stephen wouldn't value our voices.
Absolutely.
Like, in the nicest possible way, if you were a man in the 50s, would you invite 3 women on effectively like a TV radio show, whatever media was available? 100%
Well,
no.
it's why I said feminism did a lot of good, but it went too far.
But
and
So Akwateki asked a very good question. He says, why does Erica always sound like she's about to break down in tears? Yeah, Akwateki, I peeped that too. That's one of my favorite parts of this podcast. Is she gets so emotional, and there's nothing wrong with mothers staying home and got to take care of the children. She's passionate about it. All right. I'm going to end this at this part at 2 minutes and 11 seconds, because this gets to Deborah. Stephen engages Deborah in a discussion about men and women being different, and Deborah makes the assertion that no, they're not, and the men are from Mars and women from Venus thing is bad. So this last part ends on that. He asks her about it. Then I'll shut this part off. Fair use.
To go to university to make things more fair for boys. It is for us to nurture our boys, to make sure if they're feeling lost, or they're feeling that they can't compete, or they're out in the world and they're flailing around, we need to build them up. We do not need to tell girls to step back. That is, we haven't got equality yet. We're nowhere near it, much less pulling ourselves back to make more space for boys at this point. We desperately need to invest in our brothers, in the boys in our community in any way we can. I went into a school and chatted to the boys about gender norms and how they felt about it and what impositions they felt, or what random things were weird. And I said to them, what would be weird if a boy did it for no reason? Like, there's not, and one of them said knitting. He said, if I brought my knitting to school, he said, not that he knitted, he said, everyone would laugh at me. And why? There's no reason for it. And another boy just went, I'd bring knitting in. I wouldn't care.
Are boys and girls fundamentally, biologically, physiologically, neurologically different? And then,
so here we go. This is there's a huge departure right here. Fair use.
Therefore, do they need a different approach? They're hormonally different. We kind of understand that. We all agree with that from birth. So do they need to be raised differently to cater to that difference?
I wouldn't exacerbate it. I would say we all should be, as I said, I want a partner. And I think we should be raising both our girls and our boys, and any children that feel that they're neither, to aspire to their humanity, to their empathy, to look out for each other. I think exacerbating roles and telling boys you're like this and girls are like that is pushing us further away, and it's pushing us back decades and generations.
Should a man, a young boy, be a provider, a procreator, a protector? Should we instill those values in young boys?
No.
Why?
Because there's this heavy imposition on boys, and there's a heavy imposition on girls that their life should look a certain way. And
so she said no to instilling in boys that they should be protectors and providers. But if you don't do those things, you're not a man. You're highly criticized if you don't do those things. Okay. Fair use.
We've got to a point where men can stay home and raise the children, where women can go out and explore new territory, where we see that women are as clever as men, as talented as men, as able to debate as men. Why would we push this back and go, well, girls, it's really more feminine if you do this, and boys, girls will fancy you more if you do this?
So what does a young man, what should his virtues be?
So girls will fancy you more if you do this. So don't go to the gym. Don't optimize your appearance. Don't get your money up. Don't do those things. It doesn't matter. Let's not push things back. We're not going back. Remember, Madam Vice President Harris said that that often during her speech at the Democratic National Convention, we're not going back.
You said empathy and those kinds of things. And then on the chivalry side of things, should I be holding the door open for every woman that walks through one? Should I be paying that bill on the first day?
I think it's lovely when all human beings hold doors open behind them for other human beings. I really disagree that we should not. When we issued chivalry, what was going on was that there was a period of time where it was like, she's more gentle, she needs help. And it stopped people seeing us as people who could be entrepreneurial CEOs. So women said, look, could you just not do that? Because if you're not holding the door open for any of the guys, then you hold it open for me. They see me as somehow less than sweet, sexualized. So we said no. Now I think, look, honestly, if a man holds a door open for me, that's very nice, whatever. I don't think people see me that way anymore. I don't think it's a big deal anymore. I don't like the idea that you have to pay on the first date. I think, if I've invited you out, I'll pay. If you've invited me out, you'll pay. I mean, you're much richer than me, so probably you should pay, but that's nothing to do with gender, Steve.
All right. So, okay, that last part there, I don't think you should have to pay. If I invite you out, you shouldn't have to pay. But we all know that matters. It matters who asks who out, who approaches whom. And there's almost a game of cat and mouse regarding who asks whom out. And the 50-50, I'm not going 50-50 crowd, I think they would disagree with her. I would think they would very much disagree with her, which is very interesting. So there's almost, with this under this new construct, there's a you guys know this, there's keeping certain parts of the old while trying to launch off into the new. I think this has gotten very, very muddy, and it's gotten very, very nebulous, and a lot of people don't know what to do anymore. Okay, men shouldn't have to provide and protect. Okay, I can open my own door. Okay, you shouldn't have to pay. Very, very confusing. I'm going to stop that there. If you guys want to watch the entire thing, if you haven't watched the entire thing, it's in the description box below. Okay, we're going to end with a little bit of story time. Many of you guys know. Oh, Aquateki, thank you for the generous Cash App. Guys, a quick note here. I actually have two Cash Apps. This one here with the 76 after my name, that's to my business. There's also a personal one without the 76. Sometimes you guys send it's all going to the same place, but just FYI, if you send me a Cash App and you see me with the eclipse glasses on, that's my personal. The business one is the Big Words LLC. Michael Ross. Oh, Aquateki, speaking of which.
Progeny, will call me anything. Hello, Earth.
That is a special salute for Aquateki. Jazz from the Transformers is his avatar. Michael Ross says, if these modern feminists have a problem with roles, they need to take that up with the creator. I'm never going. Okay. So guys, you guys know that I've been powering through this book, the Ancient Generation by Jonathan Haidt. So Jonathan Haidt became curious about how technology, the use of these wireless devices and social media, how it seemed, or he asked the question, was it adversely affecting, and is it still adversely affecting younger people and then adults post 2010? Okay. And in podcasts, in interviews, he did say quite often that the technology was affecting girls differently than it was affecting boys. He said it was affecting both, but how is it differently affecting girls versus boys? And he was very open and honest about saying that. So there are differences, and the technology has been adversely impacting the genders differently. So this is going back to the key question of this stream. So I'm going to read something here. I hope you guys bear with me. And this drives this home, because we have a hard time today saying that they are different. Deborah just had a hard time saying that, admitting that boys and girls, men and women are different. This is from chapter. There's a lot of data in this book as well, which is why it's so good. This is from chapter 9. No, I'm sorry, chapter 6. It's entitled "Why Social Media, harms girls more than boys." And when you look around at Facebook and Instagram and TikTok, you could also make the argument that it's harming women as well, because those girls are going on to become women. And I see odd things from Gen X women and baby boomer women on social media as well. Are you guys seeing that as well? So these are the summary points for this chapter. And keep in mind, again, second wave feminists like Deborah said, no, there are no differences. We don't need to highlight the differences. Highlighting the differences is bad. Why social media harms girls more than boys. These are the summary points, if I can get to them. All right. In summary, social media harms girls more than boys. Correlational studies show that heavy users of social media have higher rates of depression and other disorders than light users or non-users. The correlation is larger and clearer for girls. Heavy users are 3 times as likely to be depressed as non-users. Experimental studies show that social media use is a cause, not just a correlate, of anxiety and depression. When people are assigned to reduce or eliminate social media for 3 weeks or more, their mental health usually improves. Several quasi-experiments shows that when Facebook came to campuses or when high-speed internet came to regions and provinces, mental health declined, especially for girls and young women. Okay, so remember, look at some of the videos you're seeing about the crashing out on TikTok that you're seeing, the increased usage of psych meds by women, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, Zoloft, and sertraline. Okay, they're on social media all the time, girls and women. Girls use social media a lot more than boys, and they prefer visually oriented platforms such as Instagram and TikTok, which are worse for social comparison than primarily text-based platforms such as Reddit. 2 major categories of motivations are agency, the desire to stand out and have an effect on the world, and communion, the desire to connect and develop a sense of belonging. Boys and girls both want each of these, but there is a gender difference that emerges early in children's play. Boys choose more agency activities. Girls choose more communion activities. Social media appeals to the desire for communion, but it often ends up frustrating it. There are at least 4 reasons why social media harms girls more than boys. The first is that girls are more sensitive to visual comparisons, especially when the other people praise or criticize one's face and body. Visually oriented social platforms that focus on images of oneself are ideally suited to pushing down a girl's social sociometer, parentheses, the internal gauge where one stands in relation to others. Girls are more likely to develop socially prescribed perfectionism, in which a person tries to live up to the impossibly high standards held by others or by society. The second reason is that girls' aggression is often expressed in attempts to harm the relationships and reputations of other girls, whereas boys' aggression is more likely to be expressed in physical ways. Social media has offered girls endless ways to damage other girls' relationships and reputations. The third reason is that girls and women more readily share emotions. When everything moved online and girls became hyperconnected, girls with anxiety or depression might have influenced many other girls to develop anxiety and depression. Girls are also more vulnerable to sociogenic illnesses, which means illnesses caused by social influence rather than from a biological cause. Two more for the girls, guys. The fourth reason is that the internet has made it easier for men to approach and stalk girls and women and to behave badly toward them while avoiding accountability. When preteen girls open social media accounts, they are often followed and contacted by older men, and they are pressured by boys in their school to share nude photographs of themselves. Okay, social media is a trap that ensnares more girls than boys. It lures people in with the promise of connection and communion, but then it multiplies the number of relationships while reducing their quality, therefore making it harder to spend time with a few close friends in real life. This may be why loneliness spiked so sharply among girls in the early 2010s, while for boys, the rise was more gradual. Okay, those are the summary points. There was a long chapter with lots of data. So chapter 7 says, what's happening to boys? Now, I got about halfway through chapter 7, so I didn't get to read all the subsections in detail, just half, but I'm gonna skip to the summary points as well. But I will say this. One of the argument he makes in chapter 7 is that the decline in boys started before 2010. So it started before the iPhone and social media and the internet, but those devices and these technologies, the gaming, lent to disaffected boys and men further withdrawing. So the withdrawal was starting before these digital devices and these technologies, but they further accentuated these things. Parents, he makes the argument that in the 90s, parents became too protective. Boys need the rough and tumble play that was demonized in Passport OG's videos. Boys need that. They need those experiences. Boys need to play and take chances, sometimes causing injury. Okay, and they need that time to experiment. Okay, and they need that time to play. And so as we transitioned to more of a sit still curriculum, and as the girls were elevated and boys started being alienated from society, their mental health started declining earlier. All right. So in sum, what is happening to boys? Yeah, exactly. Akuteki. Helicopter parenting. Though we were gaming as well. We were spending more time. I was still going out and playing basketball, riding on bikes. But at that point, we also started playing lots of Sega and Nintendo as well. So like girls, boys got more depressed and anxious in the early 2010s in many countries. Unlike girls, boys experienced a slow decline since the 1970s. Okay, so that's the decline. That's the boys falling behind thing that Richard Reeves continues to highlight. Though that raises another good point. What I like about this is that he talked about Richard Reeves in this book. What he says is, and I'm quoting this, I think Reeves is right to focus on structural factors, but I also think there are two psychological factors missing from this story. First, the rise of safetyism in the 1980s and 1990s hit boys harder than girls because boys engage in more rough and tumble play and more risky play. When playtime was shortened, pulled indoors, and oversupervised, boys lost more than girls. Passport OG touched on this in his video. The second psychological effect is the result of boys taking up online multiplayer video games in the late 2000s and smartphones in the early 2010s, both of which pulled boys decisively away from face-to-face or shoulder-to-shoulder interaction. Okay, at that point, I think we do see signs of a mass psychological breakdown, or at least a mass psychological change. Okay, I'll probably revisit that in greater detail later. Okay, but the bullet points. Boys and young men withdrew much of their time and effort from the physical world. We're hearing a lot about that now, right? Okay, this male loneliness epidemic. But the question is, are boys and men content to be withdrawn, or are they suffering as they withdraw? Boys and young men withdrew much of their time and effort from the physical world, which was increasingly opposed to unsupervised play, exploration, and risk-taking, and invested it in the rapidly expanding virtual world. Boys are at greater risk than girls of failure to launch. They are more likely to become young adults who are not in education, employment, or training, or NEET, that's a synonym. Some Japanese men developed an extreme form of lifelong withdrawal to their bedrooms. They are called hikikomori. Passport OG, if you're still there, have you heard of that? In the early 2010s, American teen boys' thinking patterns shifted from what they had traditionally been higher rates of externalizing cognitions and behaviors than internalizing, to a pattern more commonly shown by girls, higher rates of internalizing. At the same time, boys also began to shun risk, more so than happened for girls. So boys became more feminine, more girl-like. All right. So is it a wonder that you're seeing a lot of non-masculine boys now who don't do the things that their grandfathers and their fathers used to do? As boys engaged in fewer risky activities outdoors or away from home and began spending more time at home on screens, their mental health did not decline in the 1990s and 2000s, but something changed in the early 2010s and their mental health began to decline. Once boys got smartphones, like girls, they moved even more of their social lives online and their mental health declined. One way the smartphones, amplified by high-speed internet, have affected boys' lives is by providing unlimited, free hardcore pornography accessible anytime, anywhere. Porn is an example of how tech companies have made it easy for boys to satisfy powerful, evolved desires without having to develop any skills that would help them make the transition to adulthood. Video games offer boys and girls a number of benefits, but there are also harms, especially for the subset of boys, ballpark 7%, who end up as problematic or addicted users. For them, video games do seem to cause declining mental and physical health, family strife, and difficulties in other areas of life. All right, guys, three more bullets, and then we're done. As with social media for girls, spending hours connecting with others online produces an increase in the quantity of social interactions and a decrease in the quality of social relationships. Boys like girls became lonelier during the Great Rewiring. Some boys use video games to strengthen their real world packs, but for many others, video games made it easier for them to retreat to their bedrooms rather than doing the hard work of maturing in the real world. The great rewiring of childhood pulled young people out of the real world communities, including their own families, and created a new kind of childhood lived in multiple rapidly shifting networks. One inevitable result was anime, or normalness, because stable and binding moralities cannot form when everything is in flux, including the members of the network. I suspect the manosphere would be accused of being a part of this. And then finally, as a sociologist, Emily Durkheim showed, anime breeds despair. Is that anime? Anime? A-N-O-M-I-E. Breeds despair and suicide. That's probably not anime. We'll look it up before I stop. This may be why boys and girls who followed different paths through the Great Rewiring ended up in the same place, with a sudden and rapid increase in the feeling that their lives were meaningless. Let's look up anome. I'm not familiar with that word. That's got to be different from anime. Anome. Okay, a new vocabulary word for us, guys. Anome. This is not anime, which a lot of people are into as well. So anome means the lack of the usual social or ethical standards in an individual or group. The theory that high-rise architecture leads to anime in the residence. Okay. What is anime in simple terms? In sociology, anime or animi is a social condition defined by an uprooting or breakdown of any moral values, standards, or guidance for individuals to follow. Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of that. Yeah. So I didn't read that part. I'm going to get to that part probably later today or when I pick the book up again. So guys, I wound up at 2 hours. I didn't want to stay on for 2 hours. But sometimes the road just leads where it leads. Aquateki, did you send me 2? You didn't have to do that. Let me just check. Or did you somehow use a magic trick to shift one to the other? Yeah, I think that's what you did. Anyway, I think, or maybe I was looking at this phone, looking at both phones, and you sent it to the right place initially. So my bad. I think you sent it to the right place initially, but some people send it to the other one. Either way, thank you for that. All right, so let's go back. Yeah, so Aquateki says anime, the lack of social or ethical standards in a group or individual. Yeah, I think we're seeing a lot of that today. He says, especially post-pandemic. All right, everyone, that's all I've got. I have to go out and get some exercise. Do you guys have any other thoughts on this? So are the genders different? A look at androgyny and the timeless question. Yeah, we know they're different. You know, that's been known for decades, centuries, millennia, going back to biblical days, going back to prehistoric times. We've known that the genders are different, but today there is an effort to homogenize everything, make things equal, to make things equitable. And I don't think androgyny is a good thing. And dissolving the two poles for this amorphous thing in the middle I don't think that's a good thing for anybody. Michael Ross says, enemy is an excellent term for exactly what's going on primarily in the society and spreading worldwide. Okay. All right. Well, guys, I'm going to wrap the stream up, and I'm going to get on with my Saturday. Thank you to you guys who watched and subscribed. And hopefully YouTube doesn't take exception to my my little HBO throwback there leading up to Passport OG's video. But yeah, thank you guys for participating. If you are a part of the replay gang, let me know what you think in the comments section below. This is a key theme, what we talked about of my book, The Engineers of Western New York Basketball Story. You know, in team settings, whether it's a basketball court or a marriage or a relationship, or even at a workplace, people have roles. People have roles. Not everybody can shoot the ball. And if a person refuses to do their role or play their role, or just drop out of the team altogether, then the team will lose. For you guys, the hardcover, I'm selling this for $25 here, and the paperback is for $22. Just use one of those payment methods there in the ticker and send me your mailing address. And this is available on Amazon for $35 and $27 for the paperback. So I'm giving a steep discount here to my YouTube subs. Michael Ross says, salute to Aquateki for putting that in the chat. I was trying to get it as Doc was speaking. All right, guys, thank you again for the support. I will talk to you all later. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday. As always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Always try to do your best. Take care, and I will talk to you all the next time. Bye-bye.